In this video, I'm going to be taking the Smartravel Raptor ST202 Pro e-bike on a long ride to test the comfort and range claims. Attempting to ride from central San Diego to North County. Hoping to see some cool parts of San Diego I usually don't go to, and seeing if the Raptor Pro can actually go 45 plus miles to my grandmother's house. My plan for the ride is to only use the throttle and dual motors the whole entire time. And throughout the video, I'll give updates about the bike comfort and battery level, and I'll go over the bike itself and discuss the motors, brakes, suspension, and my overall thoughts on the Raptor Pro, and if it's a worthy bike for your hard-earned dollars. My adventure starts along a long stretch of road that runs right next to MCAS Miramar, which is a US Marine Corps installation that's most famous for its air show and being a filming location from a little movie called Top Gun. After going through Miramar, I decided to get off the main highway and ride through the neighborhoods to try to minimize the amount of time I had to spend on the main roads, having cars fly past me, and just check out some of the side roads I've never ridden before. After about 10 miles, I was on some of the back roads going through Sorrento Valley, and I was really able to open up the bike and cruise on easily at 35 miles per hour with the dual motors engaged. And speaking of the motors, this is the main reason why you want to buy the Raptor Pro, and I can say they don't disappoint. So the Raptor Pro comes with dual motors that each put out a peak output of 1500 watts, making a combined total of 3000 watts of total output. And let me tell you what, this bike hauls butt. It gets up to speed very quickly, and has so much torque that every time you open up the throttle with the dual motors engaged, you can actually hear the bike's tires fighting to get grip. After going through Sorrento Valley, I was able to cut through on a bike path that runs along the beautiful Los Penasquitos Marsh Natural Preserve, which is a stunning coastal estuary that has trails for people to hike, a bunch of wildlife, and is just stunning, even when it's overcast like today's ride. After cutting through the preserve, I made it to the coastal road on my way to Del Mar, California. And so far through the ride, the bike has been pretty comfortable, and I was going much faster than I was anticipating. At this point, I'd gone about 17 miles, and I was down to 4 to 5 bars on the battery indicator, which pleasantly surprised me. And since I just mentioned the battery level, let's discuss the batteries, which there's 2 of them, with each battery having capacity of 52 volts and 25 amp hours, giving the Raptor Pro a combined capacity of 2600 watt hours. So even though these batteries are massive, so are the motors, so I generally have no idea how far this bike will go using only the throttle. On Smartravel's website, they claim that the Raptor Pro has a range of 80 miles. Is that pedal assist, single motor using the throttle, dual motor using the throttle? I have no idea, which is why we're doing this test. After about another 5 miles or so, I hit one of the prettiest parts of the ride, which is riding next to the San Elijo Lagoon, which is one of the largest coastal wetlands in San Diego. This is one of my favorite spots due to the fact that it's an open space area that has no homes or businesses to ruin the views. Just 900 acres of untouched beauty to my right and the Pacific Ocean to my left. And just as a quick battery update, the bike was down to 3 bars. So after about 25 miles into my ride, I got off the coast highway and took through the beautiful side streets of Leucadia, enjoying the coastal views and multi-million-dollar homes. I've been on the bike for almost an hour and a half, and I was really enjoying my ride. But I did start to notice that my butt was starting to get a little sore, which brings me to the suspension on the Raptor Pro. So the Raptor Pro comes with a dual crown fork that works really well, especially on the road. It does a really good job muting out small bumps and feels really good. But I do think where the issue for soreness is coming from is the rear suspension, which are dual coil shocks that are pretty stiff. I'm 175 pounds, so it's very possible that someone much heavier than me will find the shocks much better. Which then brings me to the seat, which is more of a motorcycle seat than a bicycle seat. It does look great, and it is a pretty comfortable shape, but even though it is pretty comfortable, it doesn't quite have enough padding to make up for the stiffer rear suspension. So having spent the last 45 minutes riding enjoying the coast, I started to head inland, and I was about 33 miles into my ride, and there really wasn't a lot of stuff to see on these roads, so I decided to head over to the Aptera office to see if there was any solar electric vehicles outside to look at, and to see if these were actually vaporware. But it was a Saturday, so it appeared that they were closed, so this was a bust. But it was at this point I did notice I was left with 2 bars left on the battery. And since I was still at least half an hour from my destination, I decided to check where I was on the Smartravel app, which is a fairly basic app that does have some pretty cool features. After connecting your bike to the app, it tells you your battery level, current mileage on the bike, how much carbon has been reduced due to you riding your bike instead of driving a gas-powered car, it gives your location, you can create a geofencing area, remotely power off the bike, allows you to set an alarm on your bike, adjust the units of measuring, switch your assist level, and access the Smartravel website. So around mile 40, I was cruising through some residential areas that were pretty hilly. And it was at this point that the battery level went down to 1 bar out of 5. And I also realized I was still at least 6 to 8 miles from my grandmother's house. And I didn't really feel like running out of battery with a couple miles to go. So to be safe, I switched over to the single motor mode to conserve the battery, and keeping myself from having to stop and start pedaling. And speaking of stopping, the last thing I'm going to discuss is the brakes, which are hydraulic disc brakes made by a company called Logan, which I've never heard of before. But I will say, these brakes have really impressed me. They're strong, they don't squeal, and they have zero fade on steep descents. And overall, they're surprisingly good brakes so far, but I can't speak on the long-term reliability. So now with me only about 7 miles from my final destination, I did the last push going as fast as possible, but now only using the single motor. And after 2 hours and 10 minutes, 46.95 miles, and 2,766 feet of elevation gain, I finished my ride with 1 bar still left on the bike. So as a whole, I was really surprised, and most of all, really happy on how well the Raptor Pro performed and how far I was able to get. Like I mentioned earlier, I did a total of 46.95 miles in 2 hours and 10 minutes, with an average speed of 21.6 miles per hour and a max speed of 40.1 miles per hour. And considering I rode through a lot of side streets, and I did have to sit at some stoplights and stop signs, this is pretty darn impressive. So according to Strava, I did 2,766 feet of elevation gain. But just a little caveat is that my starting elevation was about 429 feet above sea level, and my finishing elevation was 682 feet above sea level, which means that I did do 2,766 feet of uphill, but also did 2,513 feet of downhill. So in all fairness, I did have to turn off the dual motors on mile 40, and this was to guarantee I actually made it to my grandmother's house. But I am comfortable in saying that I think I would have been able to get between 45 to 50 miles using only the throttle and the dual motors. And by using the logic that the bike only uses half the battery power if you only have the single motor mode, it seems to me that 80 to 100 miles is achievable if you're to only use the throttle and the single motor the whole entire time. So do I recommend this bike for commuting and long distance rides? Absolutely. The Raptor Pro definitely leans more towards a small motorcycle or moped than a bicycle, but also does it really, really well. The motors are insanely powerful, and if you're riding in the city streets, you can keep up with traffic, and you also have turn signals, a headlight, and a brake light for safety. The only thing I wish I would have had for this bike ride is actually a rear view mirror, so I can actually see the traffic behind me, but that's going to be my first upgrade in the future. But one of the best parts of this bike is since it is an e-bike, you don't have to have a license, insurance, and worry about registration costs. Not to mention that this bike is only $1,900, including the cost of shipping at the time of this recording. And I'm willing to bet that the Raptor Pro in a drag race could beat any 50cc gas-powered moped or electric moped at this price point. But I think if you're interested in a moto-style e-bike that can legitimately be used for commuting in a city where speeds are below 40 miles per hour and you don't want to break the bank, then I think the Raptor ST202 Pro should be on your short list. The only upgrades I do recommend is a rear view mirror, and if you're on the lighter side, maybe a couple of air shocks. But as a whole, the Smartravel Raptor Pro really impressed me, and it exceeded my expectations, and I'm really looking forward to all my future adventures with it. But if you have any questions or own a Raptor Pro or another Smartravel bike, please leave me in the comment section below. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great one.